All right, well, welcome in for November's clean slate. So I think I'm going to work on this layout, which is the last one of the second signature, sorry. And I think I'm going to work on this one, and I don't know why. It just kind of called to me, and that's what I'm going to do. And I think that I am going to come in with some tape. So I've pulled out my masking tape dispenser, and I think that's what I'm gonna do. I don't know why, but that's what I feel like. So maybe transition from this side to this side a little bit. I don't know. I just am gonna play it by ear. So that's where I'm gonna get started. Other than that, I really don't have any ideas. I just thought I haven't played with tape in a while and I kind of wanna. And so yeah, so here I am playing with tape. Just what you wanted to hear. Anyhow, so we'll see where this takes us. Thanks for coming along for the ride. I appreciate your support over here on YouTube. All right, I'm gonna dive in deep here. I usually come in after I apply some tape or even like washi or anything like that with some gel medium just to make sure it's adhered well. But I grabbed for this golden fine pumice. You may have seen me review some of the sand paste and that kind of thing over on Mixed Media Basics. I will link up in the upper hand right corner a link to this video where I review them. And I didn't particularly care for the fine pumice, but I did reach for that. And so I'm going with it. And I'm just going to put it down with a rubber spatula just for something different and see what I get. So I get that good and dry, and I'm going to come in with this acrylic paint in what I think is a match to that color that's over on that under paper, which is the cobalt turquoise hue. And I'm going to use a round brush to move this around, which is not something I normally do, but I'm going to use spray some water onto it and kind of get some varying intensity of the pigment, some translucent areas, and then just really move it around with that brush. Usually I use my fingers, but for some reason I've been into this method lately and I'm going with it. So now I'm coming in with the black gesso, which if you've been around here for a while, you know I don't use black gesso that often. So I'm not really sure what compelled me to grab it, but I did. So it may be what was already down, since there was black that was already down on the right side of the layout from that under paper, and maybe that compelled me, I don't know, but I just was not feeling the super lightness of white gesso. So I'm putting this down once again with that round brush. I'm just flicking that round brush over the texture and a little bit into the background and allowing things to get thin and thicker in other areas. So now I'm going to come in with the Distress Oxide Spray and the Speckled Egg. I'm not going to use a sprayer. I'm going to just use that round brush again and get some areas of the lighter blue, more of a kind of a gray blue, and get that laid down in different areas. I'm not quite sure why I reached for that either here, but I think that I felt like I needed some mid-grounds. So I've got that really bright blue and the black and some white showing, but no real mid-tone values. So that is, I think, what caught my eye and why I reached for the Speckled Egg. And with that Speckled Egg, I kind of got rid of a lot of my brights. So I'm coming back in with some white gesso to reintroduce some of those whites in there, highlights, and also to catch some of that texture by doing a dry brush kind of a technique with my finger. And I do realize that as I go over that Speckled Egg with the white gesso, because the Speckled Egg oxide spray is water soluble, it is going to pool into, or the gesso is going to pull, reactivate it, and it will alter the color of the gesso, the white gesso that I'm putting down. And so I will still maintain that those neutral values with the Speckled Egg, some white with the areas that remain white from the reintroduction of the white gesso, and then I'll have yet an additional tonal value with whatever happens with the gesso that's on top of that Speckled Egg. And you'll see here I'll go over it a few times, just trying to manipulate it, kind of push it, if you will. So I've pulled out some 24 gauge wire, and I was hugely influenced for doing this by Crafty Hope prompts, which is a prompt challenge that Crafty Hope did, and I'll link that up in the upper right hand corner. And I did a card using something similar to what I'm doing here with this wire on that card. And I wanted to do something a little bit more, but I needed more surface, and all I was working with was a plain card at the time. So that really influenced me to go that direction on this month's Clean Slate journal. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. A little fiddly, but a lot of fun. So basically I've cut down sections of wire, some of which I have gone in and created circles that would fit underneath these punched pieces of text that I've done. And then I'm sandwiching those two pieces that I've punched around the wire and getting it really pressed in so you can see the bump up of the wire on those circular pieces. So now I've just loaded my finger up with some gel medium, spreading it all over one side of the text paper, adding my wire ring, and then putting in my other piece of text paper over it, really rubbing it well so I can get that wire to kind of show through. I just didn't feel like the wire, the dimension of this was showing through enough. So I decided to come in with some Stabilo All and accentuate, maybe put like a shadow on the inside of the wire onto the paper. So I come in there, I do a first spray it down. It's not dark enough for me. It doesn't bleed enough for me into the paper. So I go in with a water brush and the Stabilo All again and just accentuate that even more. So I get those good and dry, and now I'm just kind of looking at placement. What do I want to do with these further? And it dawned on me, maybe they're coming over like a branch of some sort. So I thought, well, we need the branch, so let's go ahead and add additional wire to this. I'm already invested, so I did pull the wire out and start looking at it, utilizing that to have them kind of hanging off of that wire. So I pulled down off that spool of wire 2 layers and doubled it over because I wanted it to be a little bit thicker so it showed up a little bit better. And I started playing with that, and I have to admit I got really fiddly with this, and it took me a while to figure out what I ended up wanting to do with it. And I recognized fairly into it that I was overthinking it. So I kind of abandoned the wire in the interim and started deciding, do I want to do something with the center of these circles? And that's when I pulled out buttons and went into yet another deep dive into figuring out the whole button situation.
So-called old friends don't need to offend you. I love you in a big way, but you really didn't have to go and be like that. Be like that. Be like that. Be like that. I love you in a big way, but you really didn't have to go and be like that.
So I finally made my selection on the buttons and decided that I needed to put something in the center for the holes, and chose to do that with some DMC floss. So I just threaded a large eye needle, making sure that it would go through all those buttons, and then threaded that through and got them sewed onto the fronts of those little wired paper circles. Having gotten those all sewed on, I was pretty easily swayed on what sentiment or quote or whatever, what have you, that I wanted to use on this page. I wanted to convey something about the chilly feel of this. It wasn't really where I had gone, but that's where I ended up being. And so I found this little quote and pulled it out pretty quickly, and I knew that I wanted to bring through some of that same sewing notions, the kind of vintagey feel that I love, and started looking for through some of my carded vintage sewing notions.
Bright pads on bare legs, you're like Charlie Horsing. Cheap trick you played. I love you in a big way.
I really wasn't quite sure what I was going to do with those wires, so I just kind of dove into this part of what I knew I wanted to do. So I find pretty quickly the card that I wanted to use with these snaps on it, and then went ahead and inked up the edges of that with the archival vintage photo from the Distress Ink line. And then I went ahead and got that glued down. Now I did have some unexpected issues with it wanting to pop up because of those snaps, and so I just used my trusty clothespins to hold that down so that I can then turn my attention to the wire parts.
Be like that. I love you in a big way, but you really didn't have to go and be like that. Be like that. Be like that. Be like that. Arctic glacier, so cold in nature. That brick you threw bounced off me and flew back at you. I'm gonna love you anyway. Wish you didn't have to go and be like that. Be like that. Be like that. Be like that. I love you in a big way, but you really didn't have.
So I ended up deciding to go ahead and sew those quote unquote branches that are holding the little circular wired pieces with the buttons on them down to the page. So I pull out my thread again and my DMC floss and loaded up my large eyed needle and went ahead and sewed them down in 2 places on each one, and called it good for secure. I did tape the back of it where it came through on the back side of the page just for added security.
Cheap trick you played. I love you in a big way, but you really didn't have to go and be like that. Be like that. Be like that. Be like that. Pop and young skin, so cold, old friends don't need to defend you. I love you in a big way, but you really didn't have to go and be like that. Be like that. Be like that. Be like that. I love you in a big.
And because the buttons were heavy and I also wanted to give some security to that wire branch, quote unquote, branch thing, I did pull out my E6000 to glue the button wired piece to the wire branch piece. I did use, again, my clothespins as well as my vintage very weighty iron there to hold things down until they dried. And once I pulled everything off, once it was dry, I felt like I needed to put some shadow in underneath the card with the quote on it. And so I do. I go in with the Stabilo All and just add a little bit of shading coming off the bottom of that. Kind of up the sides, not too much though. And then similarly, I went around the circles with the Stabilo All as well, giving some additional shadowing around it so they'd pop off the page a bit more. And that's pretty much it for this journal page. We are ever getting closer to the end of the year. What will we be doing in 2024 for our art journaling series? More will be revealed.
Be like that.